Sarah thought she had everything: love, security, a future with Daniel. But when she discovers his shocking betrayal, her world is shattered. As she unravels the truth, Sarah's life spirals into a dangerous web of deceit, secrets, and betrayal. With Daniel's dark past threatening her safety, Sarah must make a life-altering decision: confront the man she once loved, or escape before it's too late. As the tension builds and the stakes rise, Sarah faces the ultimate question: can she rebuild her life after the ultimate betrayal? Watch until the end to see how her journey unfolds. It's the summer of 2022 in a small, picturesque suburban town. The sun is setting behind rows of modest homes, casting long shadows across neatly trimmed lawns. Birds chirp lazily in the trees as the warmth of the day starts to slip away, replaced by the cool breeze of evening. This is a quiet neighborhood, where nothing much ever happens, or at least, that's what Sarah always thought. Sarah Williams is like many women in her early 30s, balanced, steady, and fiercely loyal. She's the kind of person who believes in the good in others, who sticks to her commitments, and gives her best in everything she does. She has a solid job at a local marketing firm, where she's respected for her hard work and dedication. Her friends describe her as someone you could always count on, the type of person who drops everything to help, whether it's a last-minute favor or listening to someone vent after a bad day. Sarah's life feels predictable, comfortable, even. She lives in a modest but cozy house with her husband, Daniel. They've been together for nearly a decade, married for 5 years. They've built a life full of shared memories, inside jokes, and small comforts: cooking dinner together, weekend hikes, lazy Sundays spent on the couch watching old movies. But recently, something's been off. It's subtle, like a shift in the air just before a storm. Sarah's been noticing little things, small changes in Daniel's behavior. He's distracted more often, his phone constantly glued to his hand, his responses short and dismissive. When she asks if something's wrong, he brushes it off with a tired, "I'm just stressed, babe, work's been crazy." But she knows him too well. Daniel isn't the kind of guy to close himself off without a reason. He's always been open with her, too open sometimes. So, Sarah can't help but wonder if something's going on behind the scenes. It's not that Sarah hasn't noticed other changes either. For the past few months, their intimacy has dwindled. There are fewer late-night talks, fewer moments of physical closeness. And when they do make love, it feels off, mechanical, distant. Like Daniel is physically there, but his mind is somewhere else. Sarah doesn't know it yet, but this is only the beginning of a much darker revelation. Daniel Williams is the kind of man who exudes confidence. Tall, handsome, and with a smile that could light up a room, he's the kind of guy people just gravitate towards. He's charming, well-spoken, and successful in his own right, working as a project manager for a well-known tech company. His colleagues respect him, his friends admire him, and to Sarah, he's always been the perfect partner. He's the guy who picked her up on their first date in a shiny car, the guy who made her laugh when she was having a bad day, the guy who helped her believe that true love was real. But lately, Daniel has been living a double life behind the polished exterior, the confident smile, and the kind words. He's hiding a secret that threatens to unravel everything he's been seeing someone else. Someone he met through work, an attractive younger woman named Natalie. At first, it was just a harmless flirtation, a few innocent text messages exchanged during late nights at the office, but it quickly escalated. Drinks after work became late-night rendezvous. Texts turned into calls. Calls turned into passionate, stolen moments. Daniel never meant for it to go this far. He never set out to hurt Sarah. But somewhere along the way, he got lost. The excitement of a new relationship, the feeling of being desired again, filled a void that had been growing in his marriage for months. He convinced himself that what he was doing wasn't so bad, that it was just a phase. After all, it wasn't like he didn't love Sarah. He did. He still did. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes, the things that seem like they'll never change are the things that start to break apart quietly, without anyone noticing at first. One Tuesday evening, Sarah comes home from work a little earlier than usual. She's been looking forward to a quiet night with Daniel, hoping for some quality time to talk, to reconnect. But when she opens the door, she's met with an empty house. There's no sign of Daniel, no keys left on the table, no jacket draped over the chair. He's not even home yet. It's odd. Sarah thinks Daniel's usually home by now, especially since he'd mentioned he'd be working from home today. She calls his phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. She tries again, then again. Still no answer. A feeling of unease begins to creep in. Sarah brushes it off, figuring maybe he's caught in traffic or had to stay late at the office, but deep down, something feels off. Later that night, when Daniel finally walks through the door, Sarah tries to mask the worry on her face with a smile. He's acting strange. His hair is slightly disheveled, his shirt untucked. But what stands out the most is his demeanor. He's tense, more guarded than usual. He doesn't meet her eyes, and when she asks how his day went, he mutters something vague about busy work stuff. He's hiding something. Sarah feels it in her gut, even though she can't pinpoint what it is. As the evening goes on, the silence between them deepens. They eat dinner in awkward quiet, Sarah trying to maintain a sense of normalcy while her mind races. She wants to ask him where he's been, why he hasn't answered his phone, but she doesn't want to seem paranoid, so she swallows her doubts and tries to pretend everything is fine. But Sarah can't shake the feeling that the life they've built together is slipping away. The woman she married is still there, but Daniel is becoming more and more of a stranger. The next day, Sarah takes the day off from work. She wants to get to the bottom of this, to understand what's going on with Daniel before her own suspicions grow even worse. She's learned the hard way that ignoring her instincts only leads to heartbreak. As she sits at the kitchen table, her mind spins with the possibilities. Maybe he's just been stressed out. Maybe work is really taking a toll on him. Maybe it's nothing at all. But deep down, Sarah knows better. The next few days blur together. Sarah's suspicions don't fade. In fact, they only grow stronger. Daniel's behavior continues to be distant, his excuses more elaborate. He starts working late more often, telling Sarah that there's a big project at work that needs his attention. It's strange because this project didn't seem to exist before, and his late nights are becoming a regular occurrence. Meanwhile, Sarah's mind races. She knows something isn't right, but she can't quite put her finger on it. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Sarah's world shifts. She's sitting at her desk, working through some emails, when her phone buzzes. It's a text from Daniel. "Hey babe, I'll be home a little late tonight, don't wait up for me, okay?" It's an innocuous message, but it feels like a red flag. Sarah doesn't have any immediate plans to confront him, she's still trying to piece everything together, but something inside her urges her to act. Maybe it's the need for answers, or maybe it's the feeling that she's being left in the dark about something big. She does what any curious person would do. She checks his phone. Now, before you judge, let's remember something. Sarah isn't a snooper. She's never been the type of person to go through someone's private things, but something about Daniel's secrecy has shaken her trust, and in a moment of desperation, she decides to take a look. It's not a decision she's proud of, but in that moment, it feels like the only option. Her heart races as she unlocks his phone. There, in his text messages, is a conversation that shakes her to her core. It's between Daniel and Natalie, the woman she'd heard about in passing, but never really thought twice about. The messages are flirtatious, filled with inside jokes and innuendo. The last message from Natalie says, "Can't wait to see you tonight, Daniel. I miss you." Sarah feels the air leave her lungs. Her hand trembles as she stares at the screen. She feels sick, betrayed, confused, and heartbroken all at once. It's as if the ground beneath her feet has disappeared. The last thing she expected was to find confirmation of her worst fears, and yet here it is, staring her right in the face. That evening, Daniel arrives home later than usual. He's wearing a crisp suit and tie, as though he's just come from a meeting. He greets Sarah with a quick kiss on the cheek, his usual greeting, but tonight it feels different. Sarah can barely look at him. She's trying to hold it together, but the anger bubbling up inside her is almost overwhelming. "Hey babe, how was your day?" Daniel asks, dropping his keys onto the counter. He's trying to sound casual, but Sarah can hear the tension in his voice. He's nervous. Sarah, however, doesn't waste any time. She stands up, her voice shaking, but steady. "I found the texts, Daniel," she says, her eyes fixed on his. "I know what's been going on." Daniel freezes, his face draining of color. The calm, collected man she thought she knew seems to unravel before her eyes. For a moment, Neither of them speaks. The air between them is thick with unspoken words. Sarah can barely breathe, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. "Sarah," Daniel begins, but she cuts him off. "Don't," she says, her voice trembling with both anger and hurt. "Don't try to explain, I don't want to hear it." For a long moment, the room is silent. Daniel looks as if he's about to say something, but then he stops. His face is full of regret, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and fear. "I never wanted to hurt you," he says finally, his voice low. It wasn't supposed to happen, I don't know. I got lost somewhere." Sarah's heart shatters at his words. She's not sure what hurts more, the fact that he's cheating on her, or the fact that he's so casually trying to explain it away as some kind of mistake. She feels betrayed by the man she thought she knew so well, by the person who promised to love her forever. "You got lost?" she asks bitterly, a sarcastic edge to her voice. "You didn't get lost, Daniel. You made a choice, and now I have to live with the consequences of that choice." The words sting. They're a truth Sarah doesn't want to face, but she knows deep down that she has to. There's no going back now. The betrayal is real, and it's painful. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Daniel says, his voice breaking. "I wish I could take it all back. I don't know what I was thinking." But Sarah doesn't want his apology. She doesn't want his excuses. All she can think about is how this man, the person she trusted with her heart, could so easily betray her. And worse, how he thought he could get away with it without her noticing. "I need you to leave," she says, her voice firm despite the tears welling up in her eyes. "I need you to leave now." Daniel stands there for a moment, his expression pained. He wants to argue, to convince her that he's sorry, that it wasn't really his fault, but he knows better. He knows that the damage is done. Without another word, Daniel grabs his jacket and walks out the door. And just like that, Sarah's world crumbles. The next few days are a blur for Sarah. She goes through the motions, working, eating, sleeping, but it all feels like a dream, a nightmare she can't wake up from. Every memory of Daniel feels like a betrayal now. Every moment they shared, every laugh, every touch, now feels tainted by the knowledge of his infidelity. She doesn't want to be angry, but she can't help it. She feels betrayed by the person she loved more than anything in the world. But she also feels something else, something she hadn't expected. A sense of strength. Because despite the pain, despite the heartbreak, Sarah knows she's going to be okay. She's been through tough times before, and she's always come out stronger on the other side. But that doesn't make this easy. It's hard to let go of the life she thought she had. It's hard to accept that the man she trusted, the man she married, has chosen someone else over her. As Sarah moves forward, she begins to rebuild her life. She starts therapy to work through the anger and heartbreak, leaning on her friends for support. She even takes a trip to visit her family, trying to find some peace and perspective. But even as time passes, the wound left by Daniel's betrayal doesn't fully heal. There are days when Sarah wonders if she'll ever truly trust anyone again. There are nights when she lies awake, her mind racing with thoughts of what could have been, of the future she thought she was going to have. And then there's the question of Daniel. Does she want him back? Does she even have the right to want him back? Sarah doesn't have the answers yet, but she's learning to live without them. And maybe, just maybe, that's the first step toward healing. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories. It's been weeks since Daniel left. At first, Sarah's life felt like it was in free fall, every day a struggle to get through. But slowly, a quiet kind of resolve began to form within her. She was moving forward, not just because she had to, but because she knew she could. There was no longer any question in her mind that Daniel was the man she had loved, but he was also the man who betrayed her. And in the wake of his actions, she realized that she had to protect herself. Not just from him, but from the person she had become in his absence. Still, even with her growing sense of independence, Sarah knew that healing wasn't a linear journey. There were days when the anger bubbled up again, days when she was still haunted by his betrayal, when her mind would wander back to the hurt. And then, there were the days when Daniel would call. Sometimes, it was just a brief message. "I miss you, Sarah. I'm sorry." Other times, it was a longer plea, full of emotion. "I made the biggest mistake of my life. Please, let's talk." Sarah resisted the urge to respond. She was angry, furious even, but more than that, she was hurt, and no apology could erase that kind of pain. Then came the night everything changed. Sarah had just gotten home from work, her mind buzzing with the details of her day. As she walked up the steps to her front door, she noticed a dark figure standing at the foot of her driveway. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, the shadows playing tricks on her, but as she drew closer, she realized it was him, Daniel. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The air around Sarah became thick, charged with the weight of everything they had been through. Her heart skipped a beat, and her stomach twisted in a mixture of anger, confusion, and sadness. The man she thought she knew was standing right there in front of her, and for the first time in weeks, all those feelings she had been suppressing, love, betrayal, hurt, came rushing back in an overwhelming wave. Daniel stood there silently, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets, his eyes searching hers for some kind of sign. He looked tired, older even, as if the guilt had worn him down. "I didn't think you'd come," Sarah said, her voice tight, holding back the emotions that threatened to spill over. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me," Daniel replied, his voice low, almost hesitant. "But I couldn't leave things like this. I need you to know how sorry I am." Sarah shook her head. "Sorry?" she repeated, her voice rising with frustration. "You're sorry for what you did, Daniel, for betraying me, for lying to me. You think that's enough?" Daniel winced, as if her words had struck him physically. He took a step forward, then stopped, seemingly unsure whether to approach her. "I know I can't undo what's been done, but I've been thinking about us, about what we had. I'm not the person you think I am, Sarah. I made a huge mistake, but No." Sarah cut him off sharply, her anger bubbling to the surface. "I don't need your excuses. I don't need you to tell me about how sorry you are. You're right, you can't undo it, but that doesn't mean I'm just going to forget." There was a pause, the air between them thick with unsaid words. Daniel's face softened. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said quietly. "I just want a chance to fix things, to make it right. Please, I can't live with myself knowing I destroyed everything we had." For a brief moment, Sarah's heart wavered. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to give him a second chance, to believe that people could change. But then, she remembered everything. The lies, the betrayal, the pain, and she realized that no amount of apologies would ever be enough to make her feel safe again. She couldn't risk her heart again. Not like this. "You're right," she said, the words coming out more calmly now, but no less firm. "You can't undo what you did, and I can't go back to what we had. It's over, Daniel." The look in his eyes broke something inside her. She could see the regret, the anguish, but there was something else too, something she couldn't quite name. It almost felt like desperation, but Sarah had made up her mind. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about her, her strength, and her future, and she couldn't let him back into her life. "I'll always care about you," Sarah continued, her voice thick with emotion. "But I can't do this with you anymore. It's over." With that, she turned and walked into the house, shutting the door behind her. The finality of it hit her hard, but it also felt like a weight had been lifted off her chest. She had said what needed to be said, and now, she was free to begin the next chapter of her life. The following days were a blur of mixed emotions. On one hand, Sarah felt the relief of finally closing that door. On the other, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this story. That maybe Daniel hadn't just cheated on her because of a simple affair, but because of something deeper, something she hadn't yet uncovered. And then came the phone call. It was late, well past midnight. Sarah had been lying in bed, unable to sleep, when the phone rang. At first, she thought it was a wrong number or some kind of telemarketer, but when she saw the name flashing on the screen, her heart sank. It was Natalie. Taking a deep breath, Sarah answered the phone. "Hello?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line before Natalie's voice came through, shaky but determined. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. There's something you don't know. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories." The night Sarah answered the phone call from Natalie, she had no idea what was about to unfold. She had braced herself for another tearful apology from Daniel, or perhaps more vague assurances that he still loved her. But what Natalie said next would change everything. "Sarah, listen to me. You have to know the truth. It's not what you think." Natalie's voice trembled, filled with urgency. "Daniel wasn't just cheating on you because of some affair. There's more. So much more." For a moment, Sarah was paralyzed, unable to process what Natalie was saying. "What do you mean?" she finally managed to whisper, her pulse quickening. I didn't want to tell you this, but you deserve to know Daniel was involved in something dangerous. It's why he was distant, why he wasn't the man you knew." The phone felt heavy in Sarah's hand, her heart hammering in her chest. "What are you talking about? What could be worse than this? He lied to me, betrayed me. He's the one who broke my trust, he destroyed everything." Natalie sighed, a long, drawn-out breath. "It's bigger than just him. I found out a few weeks ago that Daniel was involved in some shady stuff that goes way beyond cheating. He's mixed up with people who aren't good news, and I think they've been pressuring him." Sarah's mind was racing, trying to piece together what Natalie was saying. "What do you mean, pressuring him? What kind of people?" "I can't go into all the details, but I found evidence, notes, messages, phone calls. Daniel was trying to pull away from them, but I think they're still involved with him. He didn't want you to know about any of this because he was afraid for both you and him. But now..." Natalie's voice broke. "I think it's too late. He's in deeper than you think." The room felt colder. Sarah's thoughts were spinning out of control. The man she had loved, the man who had hurt her so deeply, might have been hiding even darker secrets. Was everything he had said about their life together a lie? Was he ever truly the person she thought he was? Before Sarah could respond, Natalie spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sarah, be careful. I think Daniel's in danger. I'm not sure if he's involved with people who could hurt you. If they found out what you know, you have to stay safe." The call ended abruptly, leaving Sarah standing in the silence of her apartment. The world outside seemed to continue on as usual, but her world had been shattered once more. This wasn't just about Daniel's betrayal, it was about something much darker. She had been living with a man who had been hiding a dangerous secret, and now she had to figure out whether to trust him again, or to walk away for good. The next day, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her mind kept returning to the phone call with Natalie, replaying the conversation over and over again. Was it possible that Daniel had been involved in something criminal? Was his infidelity a symptom of something larger, something she could never have imagined? Her hands shook as she picked up her phone. She had to talk to Daniel. She needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. After all, he had lied to her before. What was stopping him from lying again? Without thinking, she dialed his number. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice sounding hoarse as if he had just woken up. "Sarah, what's going on? Are you okay? I need to see you now." There was a brief pause, and then Daniel sighed. "Sarah, I know you're still angry, I understand, but I don't want excuses," Sarah interrupted, her voice hardening. "I need the truth, Daniel, all of it. Please, I'll explain everything, just let me come over." Sarah didn't answer immediately. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, her face pale, her eyes wild with uncertainty. Could she face him again? Could she trust him? But something inside her told her that this confrontation was inevitable, that they were on the brink of something irreversible. "Fine," she said, her voice quieter now. "Come over. But know this, Daniel. I need the truth. All of it. No more lies." A few hours later, Daniel was standing at her door. The moment he walked in, Sarah could see the exhaustion etched on his face. His eyes were heavy, tired, but there was something else. Something about him seemed fragile. "Sarah," he began, his voice low and strained. "I know this is hard, but I'm begging you to hear me out." "Start talking," she said, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I know about the affair. I know what you did. But that's not the reason I called you here. There's something bigger going on, and I need to understand." Daniel's eyes widened, and his breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean?" "I talked to Natalie last night," Sarah said coldly. "She told me everything about the shady people you've been involved with, about the things you've been hiding from me." Daniel's face shifted from confusion to something else. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. He stepped forward, his voice trembling. "It's not like you think I didn't want you to get involved. You're in danger, Sarah. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Sarah shot back, her voice rising. "By lying to me? By cheating on me? By keeping me in the dark about who you really are?" "Sarah, please," he said, taking a step closer, his hand reaching out. "I never meant to hurt you. I swear to God, I never wanted this to happen. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. I've been trying to get out of it. But it's been harder than I thought." Sarah backed away, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to believe him. Part of her still wanted to hold on to the man she had loved. But another part of her knew that things would never be the same. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Daniel," she whispered. "Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more intense moments." Daniel's eyes filled with regret, and he reached out again, but this time, Sarah pulled back. The finality of the moment hit her hard, and it felt like a weight had settled on her chest. She had to make a choice, and it was the hardest decision she had ever faced. In that moment, Sarah realized that no matter how much she still cared for Daniel, she couldn't keep living in the shadow of his lies. She had to move forward, no matter what it took. Sarah stood at the window, watching the rain pour down, her thoughts swirling like the storm outside. Daniel's words echoed in her mind, but they didn't comfort her. "I didn't want you to get involved," he had said. "I was trying to protect you." But how could he have kept something so dangerous from her? The lies, the secrets, the affair. It was all too much. Sarah was no longer sure who Daniel truly was. He had betrayed her in ways that went far beyond infidelity. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. It was about a broken trust, a life that had been constructed on lies. How could she ever believe him again? But as she stared out into the darkened world, she couldn't ignore the one thing that still pulled at her heart: the love she had for him. Despite everything, a part of her still wanted to believe in him, still wanted to fight for what they had. Yet, deep down, Sarah knew that the longer she stayed in this toxic cycle, the harder it would be to walk away. Could she really trust him again? Could she risk her own safety for someone who had kept so many secrets? And what if Natalie was right? What if Daniel's dangerous associations were just the tip of the iceberg? She turned around to face him. He was still standing there, in the doorway, looking as broken as she felt. There was desperation in his eyes, a silent plea for understanding, but Sarah couldn't bring herself to soften. She had to make a decision. "Why didn't you tell me the truth, Daniel?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me what was going on?" "I didn't want to put you in danger," Daniel replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "The people I've gotten involved with? They're dangerous. I couldn't risk them coming after you. I thought if I kept you in the dark, I could protect you." Sarah shook her head. "But you didn't protect me, Daniel. You kept me in the dark, and now everything is falling apart. You lied to me, you cheated on me, and now I don't even know who you are anymore." The words stung, and Sarah saw the guilt flash across Daniel's face. He took a step toward her, but she backed away, her heart heavy with uncertainty. Could she really forgive him for all of this? Was love enough to overcome the wreckage he had caused? "I never meant for any of this to happen," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I swear, Sarah, if I could go back I would fix everything, but I can't undo the past. All I can do now is beg for your forgiveness." The words felt empty, like echoes in the room. Sarah's hands trembled as she folded her arms across her chest, trying to protect herself from the hurt that threatened to overwhelm her. She had always believed in second chances. But this felt like too much to forgive. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Daniel," she said softly. "I don't know if I can trust you again." Daniel's face twisted in pain, and for a moment, Sarah saw the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who had once made her feel safe and cherished. But that man seemed so far away now, buried under layers of lies and deceit. "I'll do anything to prove myself to you, Sarah," he said, stepping forward once more. "Anything, just give me a chance." Sarah closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She wanted to believe him, but the truth was, she didn't know if she could ever feel safe with him again. The man she had loved was now a stranger, and the more she thought about it, the more she realized that he had taken something from her: her sense of security, her trust, her peace of mind. Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, her heart sinking as she saw the name on the screen. It was a message from Natalie. "I know I said I wouldn't get involved anymore, but I think you need to know something. Daniel's been acting strange, more paranoid than usual. I'm afraid he's in deeper than you realize. Be careful, Sarah, please." The message hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. It was the final confirmation she needed. Daniel wasn't just hiding an affair, he was hiding something much worse. And now, the people he was involved with might be coming after her too. "Sarah?" Daniel's voice broke through her thoughts. "What's wrong?" Sarah's eyes met his, and for the first time, she felt a cold certainty. She wasn't going to let herself be dragged down by his lies any longer. "I can't do this anymore, Daniel," she said, her voice steady, despite the tears threatening to spill. "I can't keep living in this uncertainty, wondering what you're hiding from me. I can't keep putting myself at risk for someone who can't even be honest with me." Daniel looked like he had been slapped. His face fell, and he took a step back, as if her words had physically knocked the wind out of him. "Sarah, please don't do this." "I have to," Sarah said, her voice stronger now, even as her heart broke. "I need to take care of myself. I need to get away from all of this. From you." For a moment, Daniel just stood there, looking at her, and then he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry I never meant for it to end like this." "I know," Sarah said, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I can't wait around for you to fix things anymore. I need to fix myself." She turned to leave, but before she could take another step, Daniel's voice stopped her. "Sarah, please don't walk away." But she did. She walked out the door, her heart heavy but resolute. She knew it wasn't going to be easy to move on from the man she had once loved, but she also knew that she had to find a way to reclaim her own life. As Sarah stepped out into the cold night air, she felt an overwhelming mix of relief and fear. Relief, because she had finally made the decision to leave Daniel behind. Fear, because she wasn't sure what the consequences of that decision would be. She had trusted him. She had given him everything, and now she had nothing. The world around her seemed more uncertain than ever, but one thing was clear: she couldn't go back. In the distance, she could hear the sound of a car engine starting. For a split second, she wondered if it was Daniel, following her, trying to make one last plea for forgiveness. But when she looked around, she saw a black SUV parked nearby. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it his enemies? The people who had been controlling him? The rising tension in Sarah's chest felt like a warning that this was far from over. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more. After walking away from Daniel, Sarah didn't look back. She couldn't afford to, not with the unknown dangers that loomed in the shadows. But as she rounded the corner of the street, she heard the unmistakable rumble of an engine behind her. Her heart raced, and for a moment, fear gripped her chest. Was it him? Or someone else coming after her? She didn't dare turn around, but her instincts told her to keep moving. The SUV had been parked too close to her exit, too close to the direction she had taken. She picked up the pace, walking faster, her footsteps echoing against the quiet streets of the city. Then, she heard the sound of tires screeching. She didn't look back, but she felt the presence of someone closing in. She turned the corner sharply, stepping into the alleyway. The darkness wrapped around her like a cloak, hiding her from view. The SUV followed her, pulling up slowly behind the alley. Sarah held her breath, her heart hammering in her chest. She heard the door of the car open and close, and before she could react, a figure appeared before her. It wasn't Daniel. It was Natalie. Sarah exhaled a breath. She didn't know she'd been holding. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the unexpected appearance of her friend. Natalie had been one of the few people Sarah had trusted completely. At least, until recently. Now, the weight of that trust felt fragile. "Sarah," Natalie said, her voice low but urgent. "You need to leave right now." Sarah's brow furrowed, confusion taking over. "Leave? Why? What's going on?" "Natalie, what's happening?" Sarah's voice shook. The fear of the unknown beginning to settle in Natalie's face looked tense, her eyes scanning the street behind them. It was clear she was scared. Genuinely scared. "You don't understand, Sarah," Natalie said, her voice tight. "You have to get out of here. Daniel's in deeper than you know. He's made enemies, and they're coming for you. I was trying to keep you safe, but it's too late. They already know you left him." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? Who's coming for me?" "They're dangerous people," Natalie continued, her hands trembling. "I've tried to protect you, but I can't anymore. I didn't want you to get hurt, but you have to leave now." Sarah felt a cold rush of panic. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. This wasn't just about a cheating husband. It was about a world of secrets, deceit, and danger she had never fully understood. "I need to go," Natalie urged. "Come with me. I have a place we can hide out for a while." Without waiting for a response, Natalie turned and quickly led Sarah toward a nondescript black van parked just down the street. The engine purred to life as Sarah reluctantly climbed inside, still trying to process everything that had just happened. For days, Sarah remained in hiding. Far away from the world she had known, Natalie had taken her to a small secluded cabin on the outskirts of town, a place where no one could find them. It was the only safe option, as Sarah's life had become a dangerous game of cat and mouse. She wasn't sure if she was running from Daniel's enemies, or from the ghosts of the relationship she had tried to save. During this time, Sarah had a lot of time to reflect. She thought about the love she had for Daniel, about the life they had built together, and the ways in which everything had shattered in an instant. She had trusted him with her heart, and he had betrayed her. But there was still a part of her that mourned the loss of the man she had once known. But as the days passed, and the reality of the situation sank in, Sarah realized something important. She had survived. She was strong, stronger than she had ever known, and she was going to be okay. There was no going back to Daniel, not anymore. What they had was over, and the future, though uncertain, held new possibilities. And when Natalie returned to check on her, Sarah knew that it was time to take back her life, time to stop running, time to stop living in the past. "Natalie," Sarah said one afternoon as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. "I don't know how to thank you for everything." "You don't have to," Natalie replied, her voice soft. "You've been through enough." Sarah nodded, looking out at the horizon. "I don't know what's next for me, but I'm not going to let fear rule my life anymore. I have to move on, and I'm going to." The truth was, Sarah had learned something powerful through all of this. It wasn't just about moving on from a relationship, it was about reclaiming her own story, her own future. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. And as for Daniel, Sarah didn't know what would happen to him. Part of her still hoped he would find redemption, but another part of her understood that she couldn't be the one to save him. He had to save himself. A few weeks later, Sarah stood at the edge of a new beginning. She had found a new apartment, one that was her own, and was beginning to rebuild her life, piece by piece. There were still hard days, moments when the loneliness crept in, but there was also a sense of empowerment that she hadn't known before. She had taken control, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that from her again. One afternoon, as she walked into her new place, Sarah received a message. It was from Daniel. "I'm sorry, Sarah," it read. "I know I can't undo everything, but I need you to know that I'll always care about you, I'll always love you." For a moment, Sarah felt her heart tighten, but then, with a deep breath, she put the phone down. She wasn't the same woman she had been when she'd first met Daniel. She had changed, and in the best way possible, she was ready for whatever came next. And that's the end of Sarah's story. A story of heartbreak, self-discovery, and the strength it takes to walk away when you realize you deserve more. Thank you so much for following this journey. If you've enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories on relationships, resilience, and the journeys we take to heal. We'll be back soon with another story that'll tug at your heartstrings. Until then, take care, and remember, your story is worth telling. This final section concludes Sarah's journey, showing how she moves forward and regains control of her life. Her transformation from victim to survivor is empowering, and the resolution provides closure for both her and Daniel.